Hi there, it's Dave Altavilla for Hot Hardware, and this is Apple's 5th generation super thin 10-inch iPad, otherwise known as the iPad Air. How thin is it? Well, it's about 0.29 inches thin to be exact, and though we weren't quite able to make it disappear behind a pencil like the Apple folks do in their TV and web commercials, we were almost able to hide it behind our trusty number 2 Dixon Ticonderoga, as you can see here. Almost. The new iPad Air is powered by Apple's 64-bit A7 processor and M7 Motion coprocessor combination, with the A7 clocked at 1.3 to 1.4 gigahertz, exactly as you'll find it in the new iPhone 5S. On board is a PowerVR G6430 quad-core graphics engine, only 1 gig of RAM, and storage options at 16, 32, 64, or 128 gigabytes. The new iPad Air weighs in at 1 pound and measures 9.4 inches high by 6.6 inches wide and 0.29 inches thick. Apple also incorporates 802.11bg and Wi-Fi and optional 4G LTE connectivity, as well as Bluetooth 4, a 1.2 megapixel front-facing FaceTime 720p HD camera, and a rear-facing 5 megapixel 1080p HD iSight camera. You also get a standard AC adapter and cable with a USB connector on one end and the Lightning connector on the other for charging the iPad Air or connecting it to a Mac or PC. Today we're specifically looking at the 64 gig Wi-Fi only version, which retails for $699, though the 16 gig version can be had for as low as $499, with the top end iPad Air weighing in at a hefty $929 for 128 gig LTE enabled variants. A quick walk around here shows us the on-off sleep-wake button on the top left edge of the iPad Air, as well as the audio-silent combination screen rotation lock switch and volume up and down buttons. On the top edge of the device are dual microphones and a 3.5mm headphone jack. And along the bottom is where you'll find the iPad Air's stereo speakers and its Lightning connector port. Incidentally, these speakers do put out reasonably good sound, at least as far as tablet-sized speakers go. On the back top left corner is the 5 megapixel iSight camera, and on the bottom front of the tablet is the home button. Incidentally, this is unfortunately not an Apple Touch ID sensor, and unlocking the iPad Air still requires a swipe gesture on its touch display. And finally, on the top edge of the display, you'll find the 1.2 megapixel FaceTime camera. Comparatively, though, the iPad Air is 28% lighter, 20% thinner, and occupies 24% less volume versus Apple's previous generation iPad, the device still sports the same gorgeous 2048 by 1536 native resolution in its 9.7-inch Retina display. Apple's iPad Retina display is still one of the best you'll see in any tablet on the market currently, hands down. At 264 ppi and 3.1 million pixels total, the iPad Air's display, which is, by the way, arguably one of the most, if not the most important aspects of any tablet, is simply a beauty to behold and a pleasure to use. There are a few 10-inch 1080p tablet displays from Microsoft and Samsung that will measure up to the iPad Air currently, but none surpass its quality and fidelity. Apple rolled out its iOS 7 software update at the same time as it rolled out the iPad Air, and visually iOS 7 brings a cleaner and brighter look to Apple's mobile UI. It's similar to what Google did with Android 4.4 KitKat, with fewer taps to access features and flatter graphical elements free of heavy chromed accents and stylings. It's cleaner, it's neater. We like that. There are plenty of new features with iOS 7 as well, including better multitasking support. When you double-tap the Home button, you can scroll through a list of open applications and either tap one to switch back into it or swipe it upwards to close it down. iOS 7 also has universal search now. Just swipe down from the top and the search bar rolls down. And a new device control center that we like as well, which you can bring up by swiping up from any screen or app. Inside the control center are sliders and dials for Wi-Fi, airplane mode, media player controls, screen brightness, etc. And of course, there's the App Store. At this point in the game, Apple's App Store is bustling with thousands of useful and fun, high-quality apps, though not all are optimized perfectly for larger, high-resolution screens like you get with the iPad Air. However, virtually anything you could want to run on a tablet is offered in some representation on the App Store, and along with iTunes, Apple's software, media, and developer ecosystem is the watermark by which all of the platforms are ultimately measured against these days. The iPad Air's camera app is pretty stripped down and basic, but it gets the job done. There's an HDR setting for still shots, but image quality is just okay. Images can look a little grainy in low light settings especially. However, 1080p HD video image quality produced by Apple's iSight camera was sharp, vibrant, and well balanced. Performance-wise, the iPad Air holds its own pretty well in general usage with fast application switching. There are times, however, when application load time and startup time feels a little slower than some higher-end tablets on the market. Here you can see the iPad Air boots in about 20 seconds, which is still pretty darn quick. But adding another gig of RAM to the equation for a total of 2 gig would likely speed things up even more, and we're sort of baffled why Apple doesn't offer this, especially in a 10-inch slate where there is available real estate. That said, in terms of raw horsepower, the iPad Air's A7 processor offers plenty of muscle, and gaming on the device is fast, furious, and fun. Here's a look at Asphalt 8, which I picked up a free trial of in the App Store. I can't drive, as you can see, but frame rates are solid and the graphics are reasonably impressive, though titles like Infinity Blade and Epic's Citadel demo that you see here showcase the tablet's graphics muscle much better. In the benchmarks, the iPad Air proves itself to be one of the fastest tablets on the market currently in virtually all metrics. Here in the 3D Mark Ice Storm benchmark suite, the iPad Air is the fastest 10-inch slate we've tested overall to date. In terms of battery life, even with all this horsepower, Apple notes the iPad Air will muster 10 hours of web surfing, HD video, or music listening. In our measurements, we were able to eke out 12.5 hours from the iPad Air streaming Netflix HD video content, which is pretty darn impressive for such a lightweight device. All told, the iPad Air is a more than worthy successor to the previous generation iPad, and a great overall choice in the 10-inch tablet form factor. However, if you already own a 4th generation iPad, depending on your perspective, you might not see the motivation to upgrade. And if you consider many of the other 10-inch Android and Windows 8 device options on the market currently, Apple's premium price point for the iPad Air might be a little bit harder to digest comparatively. Regardless, we can't help but be impressed with the iPad Air for its super thin design, ultra lightweight, gorgeous display, and robust performance. Make sure you stop by HotHardware.com for the full review with all of our benchmark data, and hit that subscribe button here for our latest videos, webcasts, and event coverage. I'm Dave Altavilla for Hot Hardware with the Apple iPad Air. Thanks for stopping by.